everyone, I'm Emma, a certified dog trainer.
And I'm Kirsten, a certified dog behavior consultant.
And this is Dog Chats. Join us as we chat about dog behavior, having fun with your dogs, and building relationships. We will offer practical advice and a bit of humor.
Hi everyone, welcome to episode 37. We have as our special guest today, Helen St. Pierre from New Hampshire, and she has over 21 years of experience as a trainer and consultant and specializes in dog hospice care. She runs a sanctuary called Old Dogs Go to Helen, where she supports them through the aging process, and she also offers consults and classes on her website, which I will drop in the show notes below. We are really looking forward to learning from Helen with her wisdom and insights and all the incredible experience she has with supporting senior dogs and other dogs that need hospice. So welcome to Helen. We're so excited to have you and be able to learn from you about hospice and senior dogs and what you're doing to make the world a better place.
Thank you so much. Sometimes I don't feel like that, but I know I'm doing that for them. But I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I told so many clients and friends about this episode, and everyone was just at first quiet and taking it in and realizing this is the conversation people don't want to have, and so valuable. So I'm extra grateful that you're willing to have that conversation with us.
Of course. Yeah, I think the more we have the conversation, the more comfortable we get. It's just like ripping off that Band-Aid and letting the air get to it. And I'm more than happy to do that as many times. I say to people, it's like, if you're going to be around me, we're probably going to end up talking about death at some point. So that's why I might sit alone at the lunch table by myself sometimes, because I always will find a way to bring up death into conversation.
I love that. So let's go back a step. Can you describe for us what a senior dog looks like?
Like, how do you define a senior dog?
Yeah. And what do you see when you're thinking of senior dogs? Because I have a lot of people that don't think of a senior dog until the end.
Yeah. I think basically my way of defining senior, and senior tends to be, we put it in the category of like old age. But for me, the way that I categorize senior is a dog that is past its physical prime. Okay. So we will see that even in what we would classify as young dogs. There are dogs that are 5 or 6 years old that might have chronic old injuries or congenital injuries or difficulties with things that put them in the category for me is like they are in their senior period of life. They are no longer in the prime of their life. Of course, with puppies, when we get hospice puppies, that's the same thing as caring for a senior animal. They're just, the age doesn't define it. You and I'm sure we've all seen dogs that are 14, 15 years old and are incredibly spry. They are still very much in the prime of their life. They might not have the same duration that they had for stamina, but as compared to some 5 or 6 year old dogs. So senior dogs to me is more of a classification of they are now more physically or functionally impaired, where they are not functioning at the level that they used to be able to.
Yeah, really important.
I guess our question then for us and for our listeners, how can we support our dogs during that time, management within the house and just keeping them comfortable?
So there's the first step in that is accepting. This is where I'm so happy to be around. But like the first step is accepting that all of us are going to die one day. And part of the responsibility of having an animal is that we are most likely going to outlive them and we are going to see them through their end stages of life. So once you accept that piece of it, it becomes a lot easier to modify and start looking at the environment in your home as how you can prepare or make it better. I feel that a lot of people, because they don't want to see it, because in their mind, accepting that their dog is becoming a senior or entering that stage of their life means that they're going to lose them, which doesn't mean it. You can have a senior dog for years and years, but because they don't want to see it, they won't make those modifications. Whereas if you talk to somebody who's getting a puppy, they'll modify their house overnight to make it okay and acceptable and good for the puppy. And we need to really be looking at and knowing that the puppy stage won't last forever. Same thing for the seniors. So for me, it's accepting first that it's coming and that it's happening, whether we like it or not. And then starting to have those conversations where we start asking, especially depending on the dog, if I've got a large breed dog, what's going to happen when this dog can no longer come up the stairs and sleep in bed with me at night? So am I going to start needing to make concessions now for a dog that might be okay still going up and down the stairs, but I can see already that he's getting a little sore? Maybe I need to start putting a gate up at the top of the stairs and at the bottom of the stairs. Maybe I need to start thinking about gradually transitioning the dog to lower level or one level living so they don't come upstairs. Maybe I need to start thinking about making space smaller. So we tend to, once our dogs hit adulthood and they're trustworthy in the house, we just give them the entire environment. And just like with puppies, we keep their space fairly small, easy to access, less likely that they're going to get into trouble. And with seniors, we really sometimes need to go back to that type of ideas. Like, I want to make sure that your resources and everything that you need are in a much easier to access area for you. And you might not need all that right now. You might still be able to go into the kitchen and down into my office and all that. But as you get older and you're more sore, you might really want your bed and the back door and your food and water dish to be in a more general area so you don't feel forced to go that far. Have you ever been in bed when you're sick and you want water and you literally are hallucinating about being able to go downstairs to get a glass of water? Do you know what I mean? I feel
Yes.
like a lot of senior dogs feel that way sometimes, where they're like, I really want to get up and go get my water, but it's all the way over there and I'm tired. And so I try to alleviate that and encourage people to alleviate that. Obviously, non-slip flooring, getting rugs, mats out, which is so much easier now. If you go to any TJ Maxx or any store, they have all these great non-slip. I used to tell people just get yoga mats, but there are much prettier versions now. But just starting to think about, where will I be, or where will the dog need to be, or what's going to happen when, and starting to plan for that.
I think
I
that's
like that.
great. Yeah.
You're making me realize. So I have a 13-year-old
Okay.
and I haven't done anything with flooring. I
Yeah.
I haven't accepted.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm here in New Hampshire, and in the periods of like late February to March, when all this snow starts to melt and it gets melted and then it freezes, we walk on ice all the time. And there is nothing more nerve-wracking, even for me, walking on ice and worrying that I'm going to fall. And I feel that a lot of senior dogs feel that way on our floorings all the time. And it's just increasing a feeling of insecurity and anxiety for them that we don't have to have them feel. The more we can give them secure footing, the better they are going to cope with their own feeling of, I'm not as able to get up or move out of the way or get things that I used to, because this floor makes me feel uncertain.
Yeah.
So true.
That's wonderful. I know you mentioned the stairs as well. I know with our last dog, we ended up moving down into our guest room.
Yeah.
It frightened me, as I can only imagine what it felt like for him, but just seeing him not have that grip coming down the stairs was terrifying for me, that he would fall down.
Yes.
So I can only
Yes.
imagine when they're head first
Yes.
coming down, how hard.
And that's where a gate at the top of the stairs, because people will say, I'll have a gate at the bottom of the stairs. I said, well, if he's still coming up with you in the morning, especially if you deal with mild starts of cognitive decline where the brain starts to degenerate, like, you can deal with a dog that might try to go downstairs, and that gate, it's the same with little kids and puppies. It's basically you're going backwards, which people have a really hard time doing.
Yeah. And when you talked about the brain there, that's my next question, is that flexibility isn't quite there as it was. What we can do physically and mentally for our dogs to enjoy their life during that phase. Is there any tips you have?
Yeah. Again, the first step is accepting it. It's knowing that and not trying. So something I see all the time with senior dogs is, we don't want to see it. So you still see people, and I've seen this even when I'm going into the vet and I see someone trying to get their old dog to jump in the car. Come on, you could do it. You did it. You could do it. You could do it. because they've done it for 10 years and now they're struggling to do it. And instead of saying, you're old and I need to accept that, and I'm going to get a step for you to be able to get up onto the car, or I'm going to get a ramp or whatever it is, we see this encouragement of, no, you're fine, go through it. And I think we do that a lot cognitively with some of these senior dogs as well, where we are not wanting to see it. So we try to encourage them to push through it. And so for me, when you're dealing with any form of degeneration or decline, whether that's the brain as an organ or the liver or the heart, it's accepting it and then understanding that we need to work with them on that. So for cognitive dogs, that really comes down to creating routines and grounding things for them where they, like I was talking about, making a space that's smaller where everything is predictable and they know where it is. Certain setting for us in the senior and hospice space, we set the stage by the first thing in the morning, we put Disney movies on, but in the evening we turn a specific lullaby on and we do scent work so that our dogs that have sight can smell, sight decline and they can't see, can smell, okay, I know what time of day it is based on the scent or what I'm hearing. And the dogs that can't hear know what, and so we, even if they're going through decline, they can go, okay, I know what time of day it is because of this predictability that I'm experiencing. And we can do that with our senior dogs as well at home. And it doesn't have to be an impertinence to them. It's just helping them the same way as we get older, we start putting bars on the bathtub so they have some help to get up. God, I have those now and I'm glad they're installed in my house. But just doing those kinds of things doesn't mean that they're any less or that you're close to the end by any stretch. It just means you're seeing them for where they are at that stage in their life.
I love thinking about that predictability, and I'm not good with that, the schedule. And I think about, like, today, I drove to Emma's house, skipped the dog walks, and my old senior was just circling in the kitchen.
What's happening?
What's happening? This isn't normal.
Yeah.
I wasn't even thinking about it in terms of what time of day is it for him.
And I think the mistake that we get lost in is we get lost in this. My dog has to have a specific routine or predictability. And that's not with the oldies. For us, we have very different days. We have volunteers that come on certain days. And this morning we had a volunteer at 10 o'clock. Tomorrow we may have nobody. But because we create the foundation routine of this music is playing at this time of day, and this is playing at this time of day, and this smell, and this is this, like, they have something to hang their hat on, even if it's not necessarily the same day routine every single time.
What are the things you do? Your volunteers come in. What is like the
They
routine?
pick up poop. They pick up poop. The big thing with senior and hospice dogs is poop and pee. Like I always say, like, we are number one in the number two business with senior. That is part of it. It's cleaning up messes and bodily fluids and taking care of all of that. But yes, dependent on the group that we have, we may have some that are in a much better functional state and they can go for a walk, even if it's brief. We have some that a volunteer will take for a pup cup, to take for a little adventure. But then we have some volunteers, depending on them, that just want to sit there and hang out with them and give them company. So it really varies based on the group that we have and the ailments that we're dealing with and the volunteer itself. So the dogs don't rely specifically on set, this has to happen at certain times. They're just glad that, but they've understand the routine of volunteers, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
absolutely. So our next part of this is the hard part.
Yes, of course.
I love, just from listening to on other podcasts, prepping for this, I love your philosophy about function, purpose, and joy, looking at your dog and deciding how's their quality of life. So could you explain to us a little bit about that? Because I think it's wonderful, because usually we're like, oh, they've stopped eating, then that's it.
Yes. Yeah. So my three lenses that I look through, the first one is function. Now, function is just our physical function, what we need physically every day to do all the normal physiological things that a human or a dog does, right? We're not talking just literally as in our shell of a robot body that we have. And if you think about it and you understand the body of any animal, it's incredibly complex. We have multiple systems that all have to be working well with each other in order for us to say, I'm functioning well. And sometimes those systems can be off, especially as we go into animals that are aging or they have some form of a disease, their heart, more circulatory system, or their respiratory system, or their orthopedic system, their nervous system. All of these things can go off. But when we talk about function, we are just looking at the physical function of the animal. Okay. That tends to be what most of us look at when we are looking at quality of life. And we usually tend to look at the stuff that we can see. So if we can see a dog eating, we usually assume that dog has good function, right? If we see a dog walking or able to go to the bathroom, we look at that as the dog has good function, right? But if you asked me today, later on today, hey, Helen, how was your day? And I said to you, I ate, I walked, and I was able to go to the bathroom without a struggle, you'd be like, great, but how was your day? Like, the physical piece is important, but it's not the end all be all. But that's unfortunately tends to be the main way that we measure it. It's important, but it's not all of it. The second piece that I look at is purpose. And purpose is what drives us every day to get up and get out of bed. Okay. And I'm not talking about because we have to, it's the general fulfillment stuff that we as humans and every animal has that fulfills us. Now, purpose does not have to be our job. We have many people that will work a 9 to 5. That's what they do to pay the bills, but their purpose is that they make art or they crochet or they volunteer. And dogs can be the same. We will say, people will say, my dog's job is he goes to agility training, but actually the dog's favorite job is to chase the squirrels off the deck, right? That's their purpose. They wake up and go, how many can I, get? And it can be genetically based, and it can also just be who the dog is, what is their purpose? What brings them that form of, I dogged today,
Love that.
And then the last one is joy. And joy and purpose can absolutely overlap, but joy also is something that doesn't necessarily fulfill any real purpose in us. Like the joy I get out of eating a warm brownie with a glass of milk is function, right? But it's definitely my function kicking in. But that doesn't hold any real purpose for me other than, oh, it's just so nice. Or laying in the grass and looking at the sun, or going for a walk on the beach, right? Like the ocean, those types of things that bring us joy. Now, for dogs, that can be something like laying and chewing on a ball incessantly, or sunbathing, or just play with another dog. And yes, you could say that might fulfill some purpose, but it also just, joy just exists. It doesn't have to be there for any other reason other than joy. And we tend to know joy when we see it. When we see an animal or a person or a child experiencing joy, we're like, oh, they're in joy. But we don't often encourage or look for it, even in dogs that aren't necessarily seniors. We tend to look at joy as a lot of dogs' joys are inconveniences for us in the pet world, which could be a whole nother podcast in and of itself, right? But for joy for senior dogs, so for me, when I'm looking at them as a whole, as an animal in front of me, I want their function to be good enough so that they are still able to have some purpose and joy. So if their orthopedic system is so bad where their back end is failing them and they are no longer able to go outside and dig a hole, or they can't walk out to the sunny spot, or they are no longer able to get up and come greet me or eat their food correctly, and they're urinating and defecating on themselves, if that function is impeding purpose and joy, that is affecting quality of life. And then if we are dealing with a dog who's functioning well, but cognitively is declining where he no longer has purpose or joy, that is an affecting of quality of life. They all have to be working together in order for us to say, this animal still has quality of life. Purpose can fall off, and it does fall off with senior dogs, tend to be at the very end stages. Like for us, you don't see 80, sometimes you do, but you don't often see 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds wanting to go climb mountains, right? Like they physically are no longer able to because of their function, but they still should be able to find joy in bits of their life. Purpose you can go without for a short period of time, but function and joy should still be there.
And I have to say, I heard Helen at the Aggression in Dogs conference. And of everything I've heard in conferences in like the last many years, what you just talked about has related so much to how I'm working and living. Just looking
Right.
at those three categories for all beings.
Exactly.
And how
Once you
important they
see
are.
it, you can't unsee it. Not just with seniors, it's with all animals and with ourselves that we're looking through those lenses.
Yeah, I love that. So I had some questions if you could tell us a little about your savoring the sunset.
Yeah. Like in terms of the end of life period. Yeah. So savoring the sunset is where I really coach people on enjoying life with a senior dog, like not looking at it as a terrible, sad, and listen, you're going to grieve and be sad. You're going to lose these animals. We get these animals knowing, again, like I said earlier, we're probably going to outlive them. There's going to be a goodbye here. So, as a result, for me as a trainer and behavior consultant, working with senior dogs has helped give me immense perspective and gratitude for the idiot young stages because it's all a phase. So, the savoring the sunset piece to me is the same. It's the same concept of enjoying your puppy as it is enjoying your senior and meeting them where they're at and giving them that incredible end of life experience without you have to take yourself out of it. The selfish part of you won't want to do this because you're feeling like you're going to be saying goodbye soon, but Saving the Sunset is about really leaning into giving them what they so deserve. And that to me is dogs have literally put a roof over my head for 23 years. So it's my job to give them that end of life experience that I would want without white knuckle gripping it, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you coach clients during that period? Like, what does that look like, that process?
Yeah, I mean, it's first we have the conversation of function, purpose, and joy. Let's look at that, right? Most of the time, to be totally honest with you, I'm not getting calls from people. Human beings tend to struggle with being proactive. So I mostly get calls when people are at the end of the line, right? But when I do get calls with people that are wanting to really help and understand their senior dogs better, we talk about function, purpose, and joy, and we monitor it and say, okay, what is the joy that we see and what is the purpose and how is the function and how are we going to track that and how are we going to give purpose and joy without potentially impeding function or making function worse. And if we're going to treat function, if function is declining, so let's say we're dealing with a heart failure dog where we're going to be giving medications for that heart failure, if we're doing that, what are the implications of purpose and joy? If I'm giving treatment, but that treatment then is just no better term for it than just keeping them alive, but they're not able to experience purpose and joy, what are we doing and how are we having those conversations and really coaching them through how to have those conversations within their family and then with their veterinarians. When and where are we going to draw that line, especially as we start to talk about disease trajectories? Because a lot of people during the sunset period of their dog's life will have something that comes up. We all are going to deal with it. Something at some point, some system will fail. What is that then going to look like? And that's not something, unfortunately, and it's no slight to the veterinarians because they've got enough on their plate, but not a lot of information is given on that. So you'll have a dog that you'll test the blood work for their senior exam and they'll go, oh, they're in early kidney stage failure. And not a lot of veterinarians will say, this is now what this trajectory is going to look like. This is what you need to prepare yourself for. So that's sometimes a lot of what I do.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. And helping you, and I might be saying this quote wrong, but helping clients figure out when the dog's best last day. Is that?
Yes, when their last day should be. And quality of death. When does quality of death and quality of life overlap?
That's sometimes hard too, making those decisions. Like the vet will tell you, this is what's happening, this is the cost to go forward. And
Yeah.
making those hard decisions is hard for people, not only just to decide when is it time, but then sometimes having to decide it is time now just because of they can't afford.
Finances.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And it sucks to have to talk about money when we talk about end of life and medical care, but we now have to have that conversation. Unfortunately, even with people at end of when we talk about diseases, and that's part of the society and the culture that we're in, and it's miserable, and I don't think it's right in many ways, but it has to be talked about. So that's even in that savoring the sunset, where we can say, what is going to be our budget? Do we have this kind of money? If the renal failures continues and we have a dog that ends up needing sub-Q fluids every week and we need to bring him in twice a week for that, what is that cost going to be like? Is that something that we want to do to keep that function going, to keep that purpose and joy? And I think the big thing that I try to explain to people, and what I've learned myself, is just because there are interventions doesn't always mean you have to do them. And that comes down to having a working relationship with veterinarians that are okay with saying, I totally get it. There are treatment options, but it's okay to say, thank you for offering that. We're going to decline that. And that doesn't mean that you failed or that you've taken the easy way out. Like I said, we're all going to die someday anyway. And it's okay to say, I'm gonna go earlier because I can't afford it, or because I don't want to risk potential complications or any of that. 6 months earlier versus in 6 months when you've exhausted tens of thousands of dollars and you're still going to end up at the same point. And that might sound callous, but it's sometimes we have to have those rational conversations with each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. Would you just briefly describe the euthanasia process? Because I have clients who now, for the first time in their life, have their first dog.
Yes.
And they've
never done it.
No.
Yeah.
So,
Euthanasia it's Greek for good death. So when we talk about euthanasia, and what I advocate for is a medical assisted death. So I do not advocate or talk about natural death. It's very rare that I've had an animal pass naturally here at the hospice. I'm usually trying to always be a step ahead of them. So the idea for a lot of people, though, with death is that hopefully they'll just go to sleep and not wake up, and I won't have to be there for it. I'll be there, but I won't have to experience it. And the reality is that very rarely happens that way. The body knows, you'll hear hospice people say, the body knows how to die. Yes, in certain circumstances, the body does know how to die, but there are certain systems, if they aren't effective, that will fight the dying process, like the respiratory and the heart and the brain will continue to push to keep that body alive, even if other functions are going. And that can draw out the dying process for weeks to days. And it's not always pretty. And it's not something that I would want to experience myself, or I want to let an animal experience. So when we talk about euthanasia, we're medically assisting the dying process. So it is very smooth and suffer free, basically. So what I explain to clients, what euthanasia looks like is, most of the time, and you want to ask your vet what their protocol is, most vets have a protocol. And when we're dealing with senior and hospice euthanasia, most of the time we're dealing with a sedation prior. So you'll go in with your animal, they will sedate them, usually intramuscularly, where they will give them a sedative in their muscle, in their back end, stings for a second. And that basically is what I call the glass of wine for the dog. It's just they get really sleepy and they literally fall asleep in your lap. And then the vet will come in and intravenously inject a substance. Most of the time it's phenobarbital, where it's a high dose of an anesthetic, which will slow the heart rate, stop the heart rate in the respiratory system. And it's very peaceful. The sedation ahead of time helps that. And it literally feels like they've fallen asleep and a forever sleep. There are definitely times where some dogs can get dysmorphic and can get a little bit woo on the medication prior, but vets will talk you through all of that. But it's a very peaceful, pain-free process. Even if the dog is sedated and is a little dysmorphic, meaning like waving their head around and looks a little ditzy, they're not feeling any pain, which is the most important thing for people to understand.
Yeah. I mean, just you saying that, you start flashing back to those times. Like I'm a little teary now, just you talking about that, but peaceful, definitely.
A gift.
Yeah.
Yes, it's truly a gift. And But again, you'll never feel good. That's what I say to clients all the time is no one walks into a euthanasia appointment going, "All right." That's just not how it works. You're going to be devastated whether they pass in one way or another way, but you will feel a great sense of relief in giving them a peaceful death than if it is catastrophic or it's an emergency where they have to take the animal into the back. They can't You can't be there when they sedate them and give them, like, that's a much more traumatic end, not necessarily for the animal, but for us. And the research we have shows that when deaths go well, when clients have good experiences with euthanasias, they are much more likely to choose it again the next time. And that's what we're trying to really educate people on doing.
Do you have people that I get this from my clients sometimes is they feel like afterwards they don't know whether it was the right time and they're questioning whether it was time or should they have waited or they waited too long or just that horrible feeling inside not knowing whether they'd made the right choice.
The miserable human condition of questioning ourselves over everything. Yes, of course. And I have it myself. Listen, I do this 3, 4 times a week with the dogs and there are definitely ones where I'm like, oh, am I waiting too long or am I doing it too soon? That is part of being a human being and experiencing this is not an easy process. This isn't black and white. That's very natural. It's very normal. But at the end of the day, what I have to keep in mind, again, at the forefront of my brain is death is going to come no matter what. So whether I do it this week or I wait 2 or 3 weeks, I'm not escaping this process. What I do want to escape is any form of suffering. And if going a week early versus a day late is reducing that suffering, I will take that any day. And it sometimes it takes for a lot of people their dog or their animal going too late when something catastrophic does happen for them to go, I'm never doing that again. I will always do it early. If you've never been through that process, then doing it early or doing it proactively will feel much more odd than if you've experienced catastrophic ends. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you've had a client who's had a dog die in the middle of the night from a seizure where they weren't acting right that day and they didn't take them in and then they've passed in a really traumatic way, those people will be much more likely to not feel as guilt as for the next euthanasia than people who've never experienced that before and are making the decision prophylactically.
Yeah. And I do think there's a cultural myth about the dog just passing in their sleep.
For
It
even
would
for
be nice.
people.
Yeah.
It would
Yeah.
be nice. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice for all of us? But the
All of us.
reality is
Right.
that
It's not.
very unlikely that's going to happen. And from experiencing hospice in people is hospice in as the dying process, it needs to be assisted with pain management and nausea management and all these systems that fire off as the body goes through those periods of dying. It's not pleasant. And yes, it would be lovely if all of us just went to sleep and our heart stopped. But that's the one functioning system. It's the heart stopping that is the peaceful end. But if you think about all the other body systems that we have that can fail and be deteriorating, the heart is only one of those. And not always is that the first one to go.
I think that's going to help a lot of people figure out how to make the end as good as it can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have so much respect for you to be able to do that constantly.
It's not for the faint of heart, but again, when I've seen catastrophic ends, because I've had dogs surrender to me that should have been, in my opinion, euthanized weeks or months before, where I get this animal surrender to me and I'm like, this animal has no function, has no purpose and joy, and it's just existing. And I have to make the call for that animal very soon. Those animals, those deaths are they help remind me how to be proactive in giving good deaths. And I am a great proof of that study. By giving those good deaths, it helps me continue to be able to do this work. Because if I was dealing with catastrophic or natural ends that were terrible to watch and experience, there's no way I could continue this hospice work. It's not easy, but it's a lot easier if I know that I'm preventing suffering.
How do you take care of yourself with compassionate fatigue?
So I've had to do a lot of work on myself on disenfranchised grief, which was huge for me to realize that I was doing because, and quite frankly, it was actually put on me a lot because I would have an ending of a dog or an animal that really would affect me. And then I would have somebody who meaningly would, they're not saying this maliciously, would go, Helen, you sign up for this, you have a hospice and you're going to lose them. You do great things. And I would go, yeah, okay, you're right. I should not feel this level of grief because I'm taking this on. So I was disenfranchising myself a lot in the beginning of doing that. And that was very unhealthy. And so it's a double-edged sword because I'm saying to people, well, your animal is going to pass no matter what, right? You're going to feel this no matter what. That doesn't mean that the pain is any less painful, whether it's at one point or another. So I've had to work through that. And then I've definitely had to work through something called vicarious trauma, which is where when you are experiencing a lot of suffering, I do my best to prevent suffering with the animals that I can proact. But no matter what, I'm going to get animals surrendered to me or brought to me that are already suffering, that I have to relieve that suffering. And that's very difficult to watch and be a part of. That vicarious trauma can build up over time and compound itself. And I've noticed that when examples with my own healthy dogs, they don't want to eat, like they're off one day and they don't want to eat. And I go into a panic attack that this is it. I'm going to have a catastrophe. And I've had to work through that a lot. So my own healthy animals keep me going, honestly. I spend a lot of time in the woods with my healthy animals and spending time with my puppy, doing that because that keeps me able to balance, not constantly catastrophizing everything that could happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah. We should all spend time in the woods with our dogs.
Yes. Yes. That's my people. I say to people, I'm like, you go to church, I walk in mine. That's where I go to feel at peace and spending time with my healthy animals. And I have a lot of dogs, my own personal dogs, but I need that culture and that healthy joy that I'm around in order to do this other aspect of that work.
Beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Holy cow. I feel at peace and inspired and
Yeah, definitely some great takeaways.
And giving them that last best day, right? So the last best day is the day when, as soon as I notice that function, purpose, and joy are all being depleted or one is being, that's when I will make that decision and go, you're going to go on a walk. We're going to get you 2 cheeseburgers and chicken McNuggets, and you're going to eat a chocolate cupcake and have the best, like, again, how would we all want to die, right? If we asked ourselves that, I guarantee you for most of us, it would be, I want to do something I love on the last day. I want to eat my favorite things. And I would really love to be able to say goodbye or say some things before I just go to sleep. We can give that to our dogs. We can give that to animals. We can't give it to people yet. Let's give these last best days. You feel really good about it at the end. There's nothing like watching an older dog who's had a really hard time and he's really ready scarf down 2 cheeseburgers and then start snoring on your lap. That's exactly the way I would want to go.
I love it. Okay, so how can people find you, Helen?
So you can find me 2 ways. One is through Old Dogs Go to Helen, and Old Dogs Go to Helen is my 501c3 nonprofit here in New Hampshire. And there is a learning center on that website where you can see my courses that I teach for both public and professional on good death, both for senior and hospice and then potentially even for behavior euthanasia, because something that I feel is really untapped is the last best days for behavior euthanasia and good deaths for them. We're becoming much more aware and talking about behavior euthanasia, but we're not quite really talking about how to implement good death for behavior euthanasia, which is a much more complicated thing than a senior or hospice animal. So there's information on that, my Savoring the Sunset courses, all that fun stuff. And then you can also find me on No Monkey Business Dog Training. That's my consulting, and I do a lot of end-of-life consulting through that. So if anybody needs me, that's the best way to find me.
Wonderful. Excellent. We'll put that in the show notes. You're a wonderful person, an amazing
Thank
resource,
you.
and just a
Yes.
gift.
And thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your knowledge.
Yeah.
Anytime. And if you ever get any questions from people who listen and they want to ask, you send it my way, and I'm more than happy to do that.
Excellent.
Great.
We will do that. All right. Thank you. I hope the rest of your day is uneventful.
Thank you so much. Yep, we'll see. Knock on wood.
Full
I'm
of
sure
joy and
I'll have
purpose.
an 18-year-old dog with no teeth and blind dropped off on my
Oh.
doorstep. But it's all part of the fun.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in today, and hope you'll join us for our next episode. You can reach Emma at
ecdogtraining.com or on Instagram at ecdog_training, and Kirsten at
kwhappydogs.com or on Facebook at kwhappydogs. Don't forget to hit subscribe. See you next time.